This hour we're talking about Islam, our usual monthly spot with Sidra and Naeem in just a few moments' time, and some material that we're going to be talking about is going to be adult related. If you've got youngsters about and you don't want them to hear any of the features we're talking about in this hour, then switch away now, because they are, as I say, adult themed. There will be a few sensitive words there. And if you don't know Sidra, I'll introduce you to her in just a few moments' time. Okay, it's a Thursday, the sun's out, and I got another guest in the studio with me this evening. Regular listeners to Gateway 97.8 will know Sidra Naeem. She's a Muslim chaplain from Anglia Ruskin University. She's also works with the Interfaith Forums. She actually holds cricket matches and other things. Very interesting person to chat to. I always enjoy chatting to her. Welcome back to the show. It's always good to hear from you and see you and learn what you've been doing, because last time we spoke to you, you'd been meeting with the royal family, you'd been meeting the Prime Minister, you'd been meeting the Foreign Secretary, a lot of important people. And of course, since then, as we were on the subject of royals, we'll start by saying, of course, there's been a royal wedding. Did you watch it?
I did watch it, yes. It's very interesting now, because when I see the Queen now, it's different, because it's like she's my friend.
Yeah.
Because I've met her
Very
already.
few people can say that on air.
Yeah, it's interesting, you know.
Yeah, you feel a link there now.
There's a link there, definitely. And with Charles and Camilla, when I saw them, it's like, oh, I've met them.
Yes.
And I've spoken to them. So it's very different now when I see them on the television.
And obviously, as we're talking about interfaith in this hour, we will be speaking about some adult topics as well in just a few moments. So I will advise, if you've got young listeners there at the moment, we will be chatting about some sensitive issues. So now is the time to switch over to a boring radio station if you don't want to hear these topics. But anyway, going back to the royal wedding, we've crossed new boundaries, Sidra, because we've now mixed races. Because, you know, we're seeing Meghan Markle's mother, who is black or Asian, or I'm not exactly sure what her descent is, but a black woman at the royal wedding, a mixed race daughter marrying into the royal family. This has got to be an historic achievement.
Definitely has been, hasn't there? Because I do remember it's been on the news anyway in the past, when it was actually the Queen's uncle was the next line in the next one in line with the throne. And he wanted to marry a divorced lady who was Catholic and American. And
they didn't like it, did they?
Not allow that.
No.
Mrs. Simpson or something, her name was.
Edward and Mrs. Simpson, yes, you remember it well. It was made into a television series, yes.
And then Edward actually gave up his throne for her.
He did.
And the whole sort of lineage then changed, didn't it?
It did.
To the Queen's father, just because of that. So I think that times are definitely moving on. Yes,
and I think if two people love each other, they're going to love each other no matter what.
Yes.
And we do see mixed marriages and things these days. We have done for a number of years now.
Yes, I mean, obviously it's a very multicultural world nowadays, much more than what it was. And the chances of meeting, other ethnicities is much more. The probability is higher. And they say opposites attract as well, don't they?
Of course, yes.
Him being a redhead, and then it's quite a nice.
But didn't she look beautiful? She looked so beautiful, didn't she, on Saturday in that dress? We were all waiting to see what the dress looked like, and it was pretty, but it was simple.
Very simple. I thought, to be quite honest with you, I thought it was too simple for a princess. There needed to be a little bit more glitz, I think, on the bodice area, and the veil could have had a bit of diamantes on there, but that's me, isn't it? That's the way I am. But I liked her crown. Her crown.
Yeah, a little crown. Yeah, but that beaming smile all the way through the service. It was just a picture, wasn't it?
She was very happy, wasn't she?
Harry very controlled. Glanced the occasional smile across to his brother, I see. And wasn't it a picture as well of Prince Charles? Because Meghan Markle's father couldn't be there because, to be fair to him, there's been a lot of criticism of her father, but he's just had heart surgery in the US. It would be a bit too much to ask for him to travel, I think, at this stage. But who better than to step into the breach than Prince Charles? I think that was just a wonderful gesture.
I thought that was absolutely wonderful. I thought that was so nice of him to do that. He doesn't have any daughters, so he became, and he is going to be her future father-in-law at that stage. So he then, in a way, became her father. I thought that was an absolutely wonderful thing to do, actually.
I kind of saw it as a welcome to the family gesture.
Yes,
I don't know if you saw it that way, but that's how I read it, and it was just so nice to see.
It was.
It really was, definitely. And couldn't stop watching the coverage, pretty much all the way through the service.
I did as well. I was up early that morning, 9 o'clock, the BBC was on.
Yes, and the parade around Windsor in that open landau that they had, and it was just...
That was my favourite part. I loved the scenery as they were going around the castle. It was just wonderful.
Beautiful, yes. Yeah. And the people turned out, and it was just... And the weather was kind.
The weather was beautiful, wasn't it? Yes. It was
Couldn't
really
have picked
nice.
A better day. Wasn't too hot, wasn't too cold.
Yes.
So great stuff. So the royal wedding, we've covered that. We've got to talk about another topic, which we'll do next in a few minutes after the travel. A call to shut down an Islamic school that warned girls not to use tampons. Would you believe it? How true is this? We've got to get some feedback on this story this afternoon. My guest Sidra Naeem on Gateway 97.8.
Gateway 97.8. Drive time.
Naeem, and is a Muslim chaplain at the Anglia Ruskin University. She's also a teacher as well. And just to remind us, which age groups do you teach?
Well, I've at the moment, all my life I was a primary school teacher, so that was right from 5 years old upwards up to 11. But now what's happening is I'm a lecturer, and that's for adults, so they're 21 years onwards. But on my days off, I'm still going into schools and I'm still doing talks and things. So
is it just Muslim children, or do you teach all
everybody
faiths?
Into mainstream schools? So now my teaching range is from 3 up to adults.
Right.
So it's across the board, really.
So you have quite an experience across quite a wealth. Let's see if your experience can deal with this next story here, because it concerns a school, one in Birmingham, and it's apparently an Islamic school. And the gen we have on it, well, the headline anyway, is a call to shut down an Islamic school that warned girls not to use tampons. Al Hijra school, I should say, has faced a catalogue of failure and negative headlines, and it's based in Birmingham. Shadow Educational Chief has called for an Islamic faith school to be shut down following a catalogue of failure, negative headlines. Conservative Education spokesman Matt Bennett described the Al Hijra school in Bawdsley Green as a damaged brand after it was reported girls were warned not to use tampons. It's been run by a Birmingham City Council interim executive board for 4 years since the school first ran into trouble amid claims of financial mismanagement, but no permanent trust or organisation has offered to take on the school. So, OK, some reaction first. Let's take on the bit with tampons first. And obviously, sensitive subject. We have warned about this. Is there any restriction on what Muslim girls can use?
Well,
for that curse once a month that we all get.
Yes, I mean, it's not been explained, first of all, in the article why, and this is the problem. This is how Islamophobia then increases.
Is this a faith thing, or is it just...
It is to do with the faith, yes, because in Islam and in lots of other Orthodox religions, maybe even Catholicism, definitely in Judaism, you are expected to marry as virgins.
Right.
Okay, so...
And I think I know what you're going to say.
Yes.
Okay.
So according to Islam, when you use a tampon, because you're inserting up there, you're breaking your virginity. If the hymen breaks, then you break your virginity.
Right,
You see? This is the reason why Muslim women are recommended, not forced, recommended to use pads instead.
Right. Okay, yep.
And that is the way it is. And if it's an Islamic school where you're teaching Islam, then you can recommend that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You can't force them. It depends on what the language was used, you see, in the text. You see, it's like in state schools, you recommend children above a certain age to engage in, intimate relationships.
Well, it says warned here, warned girls not to use. It doesn't say force them. It says warned.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what the wording was, but it needs to be explained why. And this is where I feel there is a really big problem.
Yeah.
Whenever you stop somebody doing something within a faith, you have to explain why. Otherwise, people just rebel against it and say, well, what's wrong with that? You have to explain why. And the explanation was not in the text where they gave the warning. If they'd explained why...
Which you've just done.
Yes, the inspectors would have understood why. And it wouldn't come as so harsh, you see.
Yeah, it makes sense. Now, OK, next question. Do you think the school should be shut down?
I don't think it should be shut down just on those grounds.
Yeah. There's some other complaints about it as well, which is the financial mismanagement. So perhaps there are some other issues there as well.
Yes.
But on the basis
grounds,
of this, what we've just heard.
On this grounds, I think it's up to the people who wrote those policies and things, because obviously it is in-house policies.
Yeah.
The in-house teachers who write the policies, to explain why didn't they write why? Why didn't they why did they just warn but not explain why? Because that, I think, is a very big issue. When you just warn people, it's like a threat without explaining the reasons why, you see.
But like you're saying, the Islamophobia situation comes out of it, because obviously it makes newspaper headlines. It gets onto radio stations like ours and other radio stations as well. And then all of a sudden it becomes an issue because people just don't understand, why the issue has actually come up in the first place.
Yes, and the way that article was written, it was very against it all without explaining.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
And as we've mentioned on this show before, there's already sort of feelings from people who don't understand that there is, the Muslim faith is anti-female, anti-women and girls. We've heard this mentioned before with the Islamophobic remarks made, and I mean, you've said that isn't the case.
Yes.
That women have their own money, that Islamic women have their own money, and they are their own person. But there seem to be this misunderstanding.
Yeah, it's to protect them. And believe it or not, even now, in this day and age, in places, for example, in Chechnya, and I've got personal experience of this, I'm not just saying it, I've had students coming to talk to me about this. If you lose your virginity, on the day of the wedding, in the morning, they check the bed sheets. Even now, this is going back to Victorian days in England. They check the bed sheets, and if the signs are not there that you're a virgin, you can get out of the family, or your marriage can break down, because this purity, this white purity, in the olden British days as well. You wore a white wedding dress when you were a virgin, and if you were pregnant, then you'd have to wear light blue one. That's been on the television before, where they did a documentary of sex through the ages.
Yes,
it was really interesting. And there was this lady in her 60s, and she was saying when she got married in the 1960s, she had to wear light blue. She wasn't allowed to wear white because she wasn't a virgin.
She wasn't a virgin, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think what happens here is that England has slowly forgotten what used to happen here. And don't forget, Christianity is so much more older than Islam, which is a new religion. And with Islam, it's all still there new. And the fact that the Quran, we believe, is the word of God and we don't change it, it seems alien in a lot of ways, but it's not when you look at the history of Christianity.
But each religion has its own traditions. We see it in the Jewish religion, we see it in the Indian, with the arranged marriages we see, and the objections to the way that is happening. But I mean, it has been going on for a long, long time.
Yes.
And obviously, you know, in modern Britain, what people are saying is that these traditions don't fit the faiths of modern Britain. I think this is where we're sort of rubbing shoulders here.
Yes, where Christianity has moved on.
Yeah.
The difference is, you know, the Bible may not be considered as the word of God, so changes have been made to fit in with the environment and all the rest, you know.
But we see it with Catholics, don't we? Not using, in Ireland, not using contraception. There's a big debate going on about, and a referendum about contraception going on at the moment.
Exactly.
And
so when
abortion,
you look at,
rather.
Yes. So when you look at the strong Orthodox religions, like the, you know, the Jewish Orthodox religion or Catholicism, those boundaries are still there. They haven't themselves not, you know, got rid of those boundaries yet. And Islam is the same. You know, you just have to look at the history of Britain, and you'll know there were arranged marriages as well. In fact, you know, something else that's come out lately in the news is that for the first time, it was actually Kate's wedding was one of the first ones where the royal family didn't have an arranged marriage, where they were allowed to choose their partners. And those partners did not have to be royalty.
Yes, you see,
either.
you're right. Again, you know, when you're going back to Edward and Mrs. Simpson, what we were talking about at the start of this hour, and arranged marriages, it's there in royalty as well, in British royalty.
Yes.
Well, it's all very, very interesting. And not a local artist, but my guest, Sidra Naeem, Muslim chaplain from the Anglia-Ruskin University and Interfaith Forums. She's a Muslim teacher. And, well, we've discussed all sorts of things on the show in this hour, which are rather interesting, rather topical. We've been talking about the royal weddings. We've been talking about a Birmingham school warning girls not to use tampons. And now I guess we've got to talk about Ramadan, because we're in the middle of it already, aren't we? Or just 1 week gone?
1 week gone, yes.
1 week gone.
Yes.
So when are the times? It's the 15th of May, did you say? Until when?
15th of May approximately is when it started, and it finishes 15th of June, and that's when we'll have Eid to mark the end of Ramadan.
Okay, we'd better go over some of these things again as to, you know, for our first-time listener.
Yes.
We'd better explain what some of these things actually are.
Yes. So basically, fasting has been a common practice throughout the ages. So, for example, Jesus, he fasted for 40 days in the desert, in Lent, and Moses fasted up on the mountain just before receiving the 10 Commandments for 40
So
days.
it's something that really goes way back, isn't it?
Yes, it does.
So the fasting.
Yes, but with Islam, first of all, the Quran was actually revealed in Ramadan. So Ramadan is an anniversary of the Quran being revealed. The other thing is that just before Islam actually came, there were two very bad things happening in Arabia. One was the rich one not looking after the poor at all, as in terms of not giving them any money. And the other thing is that the rich had been rich for so long that they didn't even know what it felt like to be poor. And because they didn't know what it felt like, they had no empathy, no sympathy, and then couldn't help.
Sounds like today's world, doesn't it? Not lots changed, really, what with capitalist and capitalism, and in some countries where you have the poor people. I mean, even in this country where you get the homeless and that.
And this is why we have fasting, you see, even in nowadays. So fasting was introduced so that we can understand, we can feel how the poor feel, have sympathy with them because we're right in their shoes, and then consequently help them.
But you're going without food, Sidra, all day long. Isn't that dangerous?
Not really, no. I think if you do it in the proper way, so if you wake up and you have a full-blown breakfast like what we do,
right?
You name it, it's on the table.
And is that before the sun comes up? You have to have that.
Yes, at dawn time.
But it's very early, isn't it? Dawn's around 4 o'clock in the morning.
It's earlier than that. Yeah, it's about 3:15.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. But you know what? It's really interesting. Your body clock soon changes. It's like when you go abroad on holiday, and you know you adjust to all the new times. It's like that.
Well, I get all sorts of problems with my stomach on long-haul flights and adjusting to different time zones. I can, you know, it can take me a day or so to adjust, and I can get a lot of, you know, problems with wind and stuff like that. I did say we're going to talk about some sensitive issues on this show, so don't complain at me now. Anyway, so, yeah, I get problems. Don't you get problems like that when you're fasting?
No,
or can you take things to control
fasting is actually really good for you, and there's so many journals that have proven that fasting is really good for for you once in a while, because it normalizes all your body secretions. It gives time for certain parts of your body to be healed while the digestive system is having a complete rest. It reroutes energy into different parts of your body.
Do you get lightheaded though, and don't feel, do you feel a bit?
Not if you eat properly, and that's the key. If you eat your proper cooked breakfast in the morning, then during the day you're absolutely fine. The only thing I feel a little bit thirsty.
Yeah. Can you not drink water or anything
No, water
at all?
we do it the Jesus way. And Jesus, do not forget, Jesus did a 24-hour fast for 40 days.
Gosh.
And so did Moses. Yet when Islam came, God updated the rules and the law, and our fast is only 30 days and for only daylight hours, which in a Middle Eastern country, the closer you are to the equator, the shorter the days are, is approximately 12 hours.
Yes, that's right. Actually, when I went to America, nearer the equator, it's in the middle of the summer. You're right. At 7 o'clock in the evening, where I was, it was Sacramento, California. It's dark at 7 o'clock.
Yes, it
in
normally
July,
is.
whereas
Yes.
it's lighter here, isn't it, till about 9?
Yeah. So we've got bigger tests, but we're living in a richer country as well. So we need a bigger test, really, because we've got a lot more food as well, haven't we?
Well, what would Muslims do in a place like, if there are Muslims in, let's say, for instance, Iceland or Norway, where you've got, it's called the land of the midnight sun, isn't it, where it barely gets dark? What would Muslims there do?
What you do then is you just take the 12 hours, and there's imams there who have set the times for that country, and then you just do the 12 hours.
Right.
So I understand your point, and there is actually a law for Norway at the moment as I'm speaking.
Yeah, because
Yes.
I mean, I think
You don't get no-
the sun, some of these places, and I'd actually love to see it, where the sun sort of comes down to the sea, just sort of licks the surface of the water and then comes back up again and doesn't
very
actually
interesting.
set.
And it's not just giving up the food, we also give up anger and and calmness, and stop fighting, stop gossiping, backbiting. It's not just a fast of our bodies, it's a fast of our tongues as well. And a fast of, other bad things like our eyes and things like that. So, and it's very good for you. Self-restraint, self-discipline really, really helps with all of that. And at the end of Ramadan, you feel much, much better people, really.
Okay, well, we'll talk about Eid in a moment as well, because I need to be enlightened a bit on that, because I've probably forgotten a little bit about what it's about. This hour, and possibly into the next. You're going to stay into the next hour, aren't you?
Yes,
Sidra and Naeem, we've got lots to talk about. We're talking about Islam, we've talked about Ramadan, we've got to talk about Eid as well, because that follows on from Ramadan, doesn't it?
Yes, so after the month of fasting, then we end our fasting by having a big celebration. Eid means celebration.
And lots of food.
Yes, Al means off, and Fitr, because there's 2 Eids in Islam, we're very lucky.
Yes.
This one is Eid al-Fitr, so the Fitr bit means breaking. So what we're breaking that day, we're breaking our fast. So obviously we're going to have lots of food. The celebrations are very similar to Christmas, so we would get together with our families, we would have a big meal together, we would send out Eid cards and presents, give money and things like that to everyone. We would dress up in lovely clothes. We would put lights up in our houses. So very similar celebrations to Christmas, really.
Yeah, and right in the middle of the year. And it's a good time to do it, really, when the weather's nice as well. I wish we had something in Christianity sort of halfway through the years to celebrate, rather than just wait all year for Christmas.
Yeah.
I know we do Easter, but once Easter's gone, which is reasonably close to Christmas anyway, there's nothing really, is there? A few bank holidays, but they're not really sort of festive or festival related.
Yes, and then we have after 2.5 months, we have another Eid as well. So
Another
we're very
one.
lucky.
Is that more food?
Yes, all celebrations are all about food, aren't they? So yes, and both Eids are full of food.
Yeah.
So we are very lucky. We get excited quite a few times a year.
Okay, so we'll chat some more about that and other matters in the next hour. And people is one of the things we talk about, and we talk to local people. One of those is Sidra Naeem, who's my guest tonight, a Muslim chaplain from Anglia Ruskin University. Of course, a chair of a lot of the interfaith forums. We better talk about what some of those are doing as well in this hour. We've been touching on Ramadan and Eid. Ramadan is happening right now.
Yes,
so when does Eid actually start?
So Eid is approximately 15th of June, and it all depends again on the moon, because it's all, we follow the lunar calendar.
I think we're coming into a new moon just now. The moon's just crossed the sun. I think we should be starting to see the crescent moon in fact, I can tell you, I can go on to the weather chart and tell you exactly where the moon is. Moon phase is first quarter. Okay, so it should be the crescent moon out there at the moment.
Yes, and then when a new moon comes, then we know it's Eid, and that's in 3 weeks' time.
Okay.
You said it's the first
quarter at the moment. Yes, yeah. And
when
sunset.
the new moon started, the new crescent actually started. That was when Ramadan started.
Right,
Yes.
yeah, which would have just been a couple of days ago, I reckon, or a few days ago,
Yeah.
which it's been so cloudy, we haven't seen much of the moon. Now, sunset, we were talking about Ramadan and when you can actually eat sunset, is at 8:56 tonight.
That's
so
correct,
is that you can eat after 8:56 this evening.
Yes, that's the best part of the day, isn't it?
Then you've got to wait till then. Do you not get... I know you said about it cleansing the stomach and the digestive tract, but if I wait that late before I eat and then I eat a lot of food, I'll end up feeling bilious and uncomfortable. You don't get that happen to you?
I think that you're so hungry during the day, then when you eat properly. But then after eating, quite a lot, then we know we need to eat a lot because you've got another 18 hours where you're not eating. So, it's a mental thing as well, I think, where you've got to eat. Otherwise, then you suffer. There was one day when I didn't have my breakfast properly and I suffered the whole day. And then the next day I knew I've just got to eat whether I want to eat or not, and I did. And I've been absolutely fine this year, especially more than previous years, because I've been eating a super big breakfast. Our fridge wouldn't close the other day.
Come on, tell me and the listener what you've been having for your breakfast. If you've been having a huge breakfast in the morning.
Yes.
So
it's
what have you been
a selection
having?
of things. So sometimes it might be leftover dinner items.
Eggs and bacon?
No bacon, because we're not allowed bacon, but we'll have fish fingers instead.
Fish fingers for breakfast?
Eggs, fish fingers, fried eggs, omelette, bread, toast, porridge, fruit.
Well, porridge is quite filling. And
porridge is good. A milkshake. Heavy items, and sometimes leftover dinners. We do get dinners left over, and we'll have those early in the morning. You
put them in the fridge and then just recycle them.
Yeah, and in the morning we don't have that much time, so it's just whatever's in the fridge you just grab.
Right. Well, morning then, and the time that you can eat. Well, sunrise tomorrow is at 4:54 a.m.
Yes, that's very late though, because we eat before dawn. So before the sun actually rises, it's dawn, which is actually 3:15 at the moment.
Well, it'll start to get light in the sky about 3-something, and then the sun will actually rise at 4:54.
Yes. So we do it just before it becomes light.
Right.
And the breaking of the horizon, which is at about 3:15 at the moment. So it's a super long fast.
Gosh.
But like I said, we're in countries at the moment.
Northern Hemisphere and...
where we have a lot of food. So in a way, this is our test from God, isn't it?
So in Australia, will Ramadan be about the same time? It will still be May, June time? Because in somewhere like Australia, it will be going towards winter.
So Ramadan will be the same throughout the whole year, all at the same time.
But obviously in the southern hemisphere, the night time is longer.
Yeah, but the timings will be different according to where you go.
Right.
So, for example, the longest fasts are in these regions of the world. The more you go towards the equator, the shorter the fasts become.
Yeah, well, you've got equal amounts of light and dark, haven't you, there?
Yes.
So
approximately 12 hours.
So 4:54 sunrise, sunset tonight. 8:56, so you've got to wait until after sunset. Do you wait until the last bit of light disappears then? Because after sunset, it still stays light for a bit.
It does, yes.
It's really about the amount of light, isn't
it? It's after sunset we would open our fast. And we have our own calendars that are published, so we know exactly when to open, when to start our fast and when to end our fast. So we have our calendars from all our mosques, and that has a minute by minute on there, the time when we can open. So that's what we go by.
Excellent.
Yes.
Well, fish fingers for, excuse me, with a cough here.
Well, like you would have a hot breakfast.
Yeah.
You would
Fish
have
fingers and porridge and what else?
fried egg,
eggs.
omelettes, toast.
That's the
crumpets.
morning, but what will you have tonight after sunset?
That would be
what are you
a
going to
proper
go?
summer. That would be a proper supper. Sorry, proper
Yeah.
supper. That would be. So I've got lasagna indoors.
Lasagna?
Beef lasagna with garlic bread and salad, left over from yesterday. Quite a big pot. We had
Right.
half yesterday, and the other half we're going to have today.
Okay, so you haven't got to make a meal from
No,
scratch
because
when
I
you
knew
get
I'd
home.
be here, you see. So I
I
planned
have
ahead.
this problem. I have this problem.
Yeah, so I planned ahead. So I knew I would be here at the radio station. So I thought yesterday the cooking happened for 2 days. So and
Okay.
lasagna keeps well in the fridge.
And you've got your husband and your sons. Will they'll join you in this feast as well? Will
Yes, we all eat together. In fact, it's a real bonding time in Ramadan because you're waking up early together and you're eating together. Usually in the morning, the children would wake up when they need to wake up and they'll eat and they'll go. And we're all eating at different times, in the morning especially. But it's what's so lovely about Ramadan, it brings the whole community together. You're all eating together early in the morning, and then evening you're eating again, and then we give food to our neighbours, we'll give food. We'll have big Ramadan parties when we break our fast together with the community as well. So it really brings everybody together. It's a really good month. It's fun. It is fun.
Well, if I ever get the chance to try it, it'd be rather interesting. I don't like the sound of the fasting, though, obviously, because it's something I'm not used to.
Yes.
And I think,
Yes.
a bit of adjustment would be needed
Yes.
before I tried something like that.
And it's only for young, fit adults. So anybody who's ill, anybody who's disabled or pregnant or having
So nobody's
breastfeeding.
forced to do it.
No, because if for example, if you're a child, you don't need to do it. It is one of the pillars of Islam, so obviously you're encouraged to do it. But if you fit there are 7 categories where you do not need to fast. So if you're ill, you're old, you're a child under puberty, if you are on a travelling journey, if you are pregnant, breastfeeding, or disabled.
Yes.
That's all
Well, let's say
7.
about babies. If you've got babies in the house, they'll have times where they have to eat as well, won't they? So babies won't come into it, will they?
No, because that comes under children under puberty, under
Yes.
that ruling. So
Yeah.
they don't need fast. They're still growing. They need the nutrients, things. It's only for young, fit adults, basically.
Well, it sounds pretty straightforward listening to you describing it tonight, Sidra. Thanks for that. Wham was part of your teenage years
Yes, that was
then.
my teenage years. And Madonna, I liked a lot of her songs,
Yep.
actually. Yes, Madonna and Michael Jackson as well. Yes.
Yep.
But I
Well,
didn't
he was
like
really
him as a
coming
person,
into
Yeah.
the fore really there with
Yes.
songs like the Beat It and
yes, I liked his songs, but I didn't like him. But with Wham, I liked George Michael. And Madonna, I actually did think she was pretty, but her songs were good. La
Yeah.
Isla Bonita, I remember I loved it. I had a dream for ages to go out and get a flamenco dress like that, and I did. I went to Spain because I wanted to be like her in that video.
Oh gosh,
so.
I think a lot of young girls did
Yes.
in those days.
Yeah.
And did you see her when she was in the film Evita? Did you go and see Evita?
No, but I did see the Blonde Ambition tour.
Oh right.
And I entered this competition where I can't remember, it was some magazine, and I phoned up and there were questions to do with Madonna, and I knew them all, so I answered all the questions. And then this man rang me around my house, because there was no mobiles in those days, and he said, "Oh, congratulations, you've won 2 tickets to see the Blonde Ambition tour."
Oh, wow.
I could not believe it. And that was in Wembley Stadium. And me and my sister went.
You must have been there at the same time as one of my work colleagues who went to see that Blonde Ambition tour.
Yeah.
I remember one of my work colleagues way back in the 80s was a big fan of Madonna, and she said, "Oh, I'm going to the concert. I'm going to see the Blonde." Must have been at Wembley around that time.
Yeah.
Then at the same time.
And I was very young. I mean, we went by train, me and my
Yeah.
sister, but I do remember the way back my dad collected us. So he came there to Wembley to collect us. And now when I look at that, I think, gosh,
Yeah.
But we were very young, so.
You haven't got to apologise for it. And also the other thing you mentioned off mic a few moments ago, which I want to pick up on here, because you said something about, it kind of worries me that, because I think, are Muslims thought of not being normal people? Is it because of all this, what's been happening, recently? We are a normal people. And I mean, I know that, and we both come from London.
Yes. Now, what I mean is, what's interesting is that when you're in that kind of role where you're teaching religion all the time, like me, like as a Muslim chaplain, or even in my own faith, do lectures on Islam and things like that, people have this sort of image of you,
this perception
that you're perfect and you're like a nun,
Oh, right,
and they don't think. It's really strange. They don't see you as a person sometimes. It's just,
I guess, because nuns cover their hair as well, don't they?
Yeah.
We've discussed this before, and
Yes,
like the Muslim
Yes.
ladies with the headscarves.
Yes. So they don't always sometimes realise that you've got a life as well.
Yeah.
And you do laugh and you do play and you do sports and you go to the gym and you go, things like that. You don't think that person would do that.
No.
And in my teenage years, in the late 80s, music was around, and yes, we did listen to it because we grew up normally like all other teenagers. I wasn't practicing then, of course. And
there was a stage where you didn't cover your hair, I do believe you said as well.
Yes, only until quite recently, I'd say, in comparison to the whole of my life. Like I've said before, it was only 9/11 when that happened. That brought me to my faith.
Yes, because you said attitudes toward you changed then.
Yes, people wanted to know about Islam. They had all these difficult questions.
Seeking questions, yes.
And I knew we don't do that, but I didn't know why, and I didn't know how to explain it. So I went away and I started researching the religion, and that's when I realised it was a brilliant religion, and I slowly started telling people, and then from there people started asking me to do talks.
Yeah.
Because I explained it in such a good way.
It's almost like you found a vocation with it as well, isn't it? Yeah. And a direction in life. If you didn't have that at that time, then, your life then suddenly went in a certain direction.
It's really interesting, actually, because everyone who's come towards faith, when you ask them, they have got a life story of how it happened. And for me, it was actually 9/11 was the first big hit for me, and it was a really big one, because I remember going to school that day to collect my children, and there was a couple of mums who were my friends, and they came up and they started asking me questions.
Yeah, like, what religion are you?
They said, what religion did you say you were again?
Yeah.
And the moment I said Islam, it was, Islam?
Yeah.
Is that the religion where you kill people? Are you allowed to, commit suicide? Are you allowed to do this? Are Muslim women oppressed? The one that really got to me, I remember clearly, and it was in that same week later on, was when I went to help with swimming, with my daughter's swimming lesson. And this friend of mine asked me, do you walk 10 foot behind your husband? And I thought, no. It doesn't happen in my family. Yeah. She goes, isn't that the religion where you walk 10 foot behind your husband?
You see, the gaze has had, because of 9/11, I think the gaze went on to Muslims a lot more probably than it ever had done.
Definitely
before.
did. And remember, I was probably the only Muslim that they knew who they could ask.
Yeah.
So then obviously they were going to ask me. So it was interesting for me. It was like God had put me in Brentwood for a reason. At that point, I realised that's why God's put me in Brentwood, because I was living in London where they were all Muslims.
Yeah.
And I used to often think to myself, how on earth did I end up in this town all on my own, kind of thing? And then at that point in my life, I actually realised that God had put me there for a reason.
That's a positive way of looking at it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what you do now. And we've got to talk in a few moments about the homeless as well, because that's an important part of some of the work you do, and a very important one, one that got you noticed by royalty, as we were talking about on the last show here.
Yes.
And we'll chat some more about that in a moment, because I do believe you've got some things to mention. Strictly 8 Becca, who's in the studio now, along with my evening guest, Sidra Naeem, who's already enjoyed a George Michael song and Wham. Can Sidra expect any more Wham songs tonight?
Not as a number one artist, but I will certainly try and dig something else out from Wham. My favourite one is actually Freedom.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, quite long, that song, but yes. Yes, all on strictly.
What about vinyl? Some scratch your vinyl?
Oh, yes.
Did you have a record player, Sidra? Did
We
you
did.
scratch
My
your
dad's
vinyl?
one. Yeah. I remember all our records used to get... the needle used to jump.
Yeah.
It used to be so annoying.
I like it when it walks. This makes good radio, and then you see the needle going up and down. So,
Oh, gosh.
So, yes.
Those were the,
Fashion.
those
You
were
know,
the
when it
days.
was Christmas, they were around everywhere, those players.
Yeah.
Vinyl players were back again.
you can still get one or two, but it depends what you're looking for, because there is a certain store that have literally sold out across the whole of the Basley-Sark area of a particular turntable. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, mention to Sidra, we were going to talk briefly about the homeless,
Yes.
and of course that's something that you're very heavily involved in,
Yes,
helping homeless.
At the moment, because it's Ramadan and we're supposed to be thinking about the poor, which is why we fast, the nearest you can get to the poor in this country is the homeless. So we've got a very big, fast-breaking event coming up where we are going to be feeding the homeless in Chelmsford. It's an annual event. This is the 6th one now.
Is this organised by one of the mosques?
I organise it.
You organise it?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
I organise it. I bring all the community together. They all donate a dish. And there's a lovely church in Chelmsford. They give us the hall for free. And we set up the hall. I do a little talk first to explain to the homeless why we're feeding them. And then the homeless then eat all the dishes, and then we break our fast with them.
So the food that you've actually got for them and the help you got, this is stuff that's all donated, is it?
It's all donated, and it's cooked dishes. So a lot of my friends will cook dishes and bring them to the hall. We have volunteers. I'm making 2 lists at the moment as we're speaking. One for volunteers who are going to come and dish out the food, and 2 who's bringing what dish, so that we don't have a multiple of biryanis, for example. So it's not easy. A lot of people think, it just happens. But there's a lot of organisation involved in there. And I will probably get there 3 hours before to set up all the chairs and the tables and everything.
And the date for this again is when?
The date is 3rd of June. And I have invited the Interfaith Forum and anyone else who wants to come. You're more than welcome to come, because it's a really nice community event. And hopefully, it usually does get in the paper, so it's a very big event as well. So
Okay. And
there's lots of events like that happening to help with the homeless. And there's a lot of fast-breaking events happening as well. So I had a very big fast-breaking event in my university last night.
Yeah.
And that was for staff and students and for anyone else who wants to come. Fast-breaking event. So that's the time of when we break our fast, and there's lots of food.
When the sun goes down.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
so
gosh.
lots and lots of people brought food yesterday to the university, cooked dishes, including the students. Do you know there was nearly 70 people there? We had
Incredible.
above 60
Incredible.
registrations. It went extremely well, the biggest one yet. And everybody just came together like anything. We just had such a good laugh. And we ate and ate, and there was just so much food afterwards. We didn't know what to do with it. But it went really well.
As much as I like food, I can only eat so much, get full up very quickly.
Yes.
We've got a bank holiday weekend coming up, haven't we? What do Muslims do for the bank holiday usually?
Well, because of Ramadan, we're not doing much, but there might be
Yeah.
another fast-breaking event at the weekend, because there's a lot of those going on. So it's like a dinner party, but it's obviously a bit later than a normal dinner party where we would sit and all eat together.
Yes.
So there is one of those at the weekend, so that's happening. As soon as the fasting season finishes, out comes all the weddings. The weddings are all holding on until the fasting finishes.
There's that usual as well. The weddings are sort of held back until after
Yes,
Ramadan
you can't
and
really,
Eid.
well, you can have a wedding in Ramadan. Nothing stops you. But how can you have a wedding without food? you know.
Well, I guess
And
you
then-
can't really, can
Unless
you?
you have a very late night wedding, it's not the same.
No.
So all the weddings
stay awake.
all happen straight after Ramadan. And last year I went to 8 weddings.
Gosh, you night
This year
owl,
I've
you.
got 3 scheduled so far at least. So I've been sorting out clothes for that. And I've got a very big, I remember talking to you last year that last time that there was a big race course dinner that
Right.
happened where all the mayors and mayoresses and lords of the whole of England all get together. And I have been privileged to be invited to one of those again.
Aren't you lucky?
I'm very lucky. I can't wait. I did go out and look for a dress and I couldn't find one, and I'm really worried what I'm going to wear. So I'm running out of dresses here.
I know, and with the number of weddings you're saying you're going to, I don't seem to go to weddings anymore, only funerals. But that's another story. I'm for 3 and 6 minutes now away from 7 o'clock here on the programme, and well, we've sort of covered everything really, from Ramadan to Eid. We're talking about weddings that follow, lots of weddings for you, and yes, I don't get to go to many weddings these days. It seems only funerals at my age, but you're very lucky to be going to so many. So they hold off the weddings then until after Ramadan?
Yes, they
and
do. They wouldn't.
I guess with the food,
usually,
yeah.
Yes, because the weddings are, food is a very big part of weddings, Asian weddings. So yes, on the whole, you would wait until after Ramadan.
Yep.
And then have them in the summer.
Fantastic. Well, you've been a splendid guest again. I hope you'll come back next month and we'll chat again. We'll find some more news stories to talk about.